Dēæths, my MVVs, welcome. On Sunday evening, that was yesterday, they said the binding of Ogunjaye was done after so much begging and tears. But the palace still trembles from the Kpas, the fear, and the great lion's unforgiving anger as he warned them again to stay away from him, the jewel of Arende, the royal relics and everything that concerns him, that they should know that he will not hesitate to release Ogunjaye on them again if they try any nonsense. Oh, Jesus Christ. They said Sunday evening, when the binding of Ogunjaye was finally done, nobody in the palace felt any relief. They had begged since, how many days, moving from one place to the other, sending elders, sending people, calling people. Their belief had spiritual weight and even breaking down in tears, but the atmosphere remained very heavy. The Kpas from the previous days were still fresh in everyone's mind. People were moving around with fear, sitting inside their houses, like not even wanting to come out. A lot of people didn't even want to come to the palace. Nobody could pretend to be normal. The binding itself was not loud or dramatic, but it carried a deep seriousness. The chief priest who handled the last part of the process looked exhausted, like someone had carried a load that his body was not, designed to carry. Even after he confirmed that Ogunjaye had been restrained again and could no longer move freely across the land, the palace did not relax. Everyone knew that the damage had already been done. Elders had cried, families had been shaken, communities were whispering about things they could not explain. Fear had entered the palace in a way people had never seen. The great lion's anger made everything worse. It was not the type of anger that came with shouting or emotional display. It was the kind of anger that sat quietly but spread like fire. People around him moved carefully, choosing their step with caution. They knew he was done with patience. The elders who had caused the chaos kept to themselves, avoiding eye contact, carrying the humiliation of knowing that their action had brought pride and disgrace to the palace. Throughout the evening, the palace felt like a palace carrying the weight of a storm that had not fully, passed. Workers moved slowly. Guards stood at alert, not because they feared an intruder, but because they feared the possibility of Ogunjaye being released again. If anything made a wrong move, even the atmosphere felt different, as if the walls themselves were listening. Because, in fact, what happened to them is that they had never seen the great lion this angry before. That anger was what terrified everybody. And do you know that the great lion was not even ready to listen to anyone? The great lion was not even ready to bind Ogunjaye, if not for the fact that Sapphire had run to Lagos to go and bring the jewel. It was the jewel who calmed the great lion down, who even pleaded on the behalf, on the behalf of people in the palace and everything, for the great lion to allow them bind, that deity again. If not, he was not ready. He was angry. He kept saying that they should pay. Everybody will pay to the end. Even before he went ahead to bind Ogunjaye, they said he made it very, very clear that anybody that has got something to confess should come and confess. If you know that you were involved in anything that had happened in any way, you need to come and confess. You need to say the part that you played, because as if you do not confess, the rituals that they are doing, the cleansing right now, is not going to cover you. You'll become ill and all of that. It's a whole thing. These traditional things can be very, very long. But at the end of the day, that evening, they say the great lion, had to bind. They say, bind the Ogunjaye. They say when the great lion spoke after the binding, his voice was steady. He did not need to repeat himself because everybody understood the meaning behind every word. He made it very clear that nobody should come close to the jewel, to Ofarende or to him. He did not want to see anyone attempting to manipulate the process again, to threaten the peace around the jewel or interfere with the destiny unfolding. His warning carried the weight of everything that had happened. He told them plainly that if they tried anything again, he would release Ogunjaye. before now, he never used to behave like that. Nothing will make him go and release Ogunjaye. And that was why people started saying that when a snake refuses to use its venom, that little children will use it as rope to tie firewood. It was because Ogunjaye was there and he was supposed to be using Ogunjaye and other relics as in deity. He's not that kind of person. You know, he's very educated, he is exposed and all of that. He feels like, okay, it's a free world, people should be free to do what they want to do. But, you know, with the level of envy, the level of manipulations and all of that, was what made him to start using that Ogunjaye. And I think of all of them, they said they are even very terrible ones that if they release, if he comes after you, he's coming after the entire family. That he will not even dare try. That this one that people are so scared of Ogunjaye, the day that will make him angry. And that was where that anger was going to, because of course, everybody knows that he is the only living deity among all the deities there. And so that anger was going to a place where he would have just lost his own self and, you know, turned to that deity completely and released anything. They knew that was where it was pointed at. And that was why, you know, they had to make Dr. Sapphire to go and bring the jewel immediately. So right now, he has made it very, very clear that nobody who, you know, nobody should try. They said people who heard the message felt their stomach tighten. They knew he was not bluffing. Too much had happened already, and the great lion had reached a point where mercy was no longer the first option. The elders who had been running up and down earlier, you know, stood quietly, each one thinking about the consequences of their past actions. Some were crying silently, others were shaking. The fear was real. Even the palace wives felt the tension deeply. Nobody wanted to be associated with anything that looked like opposition to the jewel right now. Even up till today, right now as we are speaking, nobody wants to be associated with anything that looks like opposition to the jewel. The great lion had made his position very clear. The jewel's safety was non-negotiable. Ofarende is sacred, and any attempt to disrupt anything concerning her would be treated as an attack, not just on her, but on your destiny itself. Servants whispering among themselves in corners, recounting the night cries and the mysterious signs that had appeared since Ogunjaye was released. They talked about how the land felt different, how people were afraid to sleep, how some families had sent their children away temporarily because they did not know what would happen next. It was a fear that sat deep in the minor. Even though the binding was complete, everyone understood that the palace was not yet free from the consequences of what had happened. The spiritual atmosphere was still unsettled. People who were normally bold could not even raise their voices. Younger chiefs kept their head down. No one wanted to attract unnecessary attention. That was what happened, and Ogunjaye continues to humble these people. This is what we have heard that has happened. I'm going to bring you more update. Do not forget that these are all alleged rumors, unverified information making the rounds on social media and should not be seen as fact.